Hey, what's up, everybody? You're listening to From the Gate podcast, where we bring you game, good time, and genuine conversations. I'm Lisi.
Ses.
Let's get it.
The greatest.
All right, y'all. So we are over here today talking about some sports strategies that we can implement into our daily lives. So we all know that football season is now upon us. We are in week 2 of preseason, which is absolutely exciting to see. And today we're going to be talking about not the offensive side, but a defensive strategy that has proven the test of time when it does come to big playmakers. We're talking about the cover 2 defense strategy and how it applies to life. And we've got 7 different defensive principles that we can all implement in our lives. But before we get into all of that, let's talk a little bit about what the cover 2 defense is. And Seth, feel free to jump in and let me know what it is if I'm like off topic a little bit here. But
Oh snap!
The cover 2 defense was originally created in order to cover the exposed deep. In football, they play zones, just like how they do in basketball, right?
Right.
And so they've got 2 zones. They've got the deep, and then they've got the underneath, or I think they call it shallow now. And so within the shallow, you also have your intermediate zone, right?
Correct.
And so back in the days before this cover 2 defense was created, quarterbacks didn't really throw far. They never threw into the deep. They kind of stayed in the flat area. They stayed underneath in order to be able to control the ball. And so as quarterback skills started to grow, and as soon as quarterbacks started to evolve their game, or the offensive line started to evolve their game, like wide receivers were able to catch at farther distances, and they started pushing the limits in football. And so defensive playmakers were like, oh man, we gotta figure something out in order to be able to cover the deep, because now they're starting to throw deep. Nobody's playing in the flats anymore. Nobody's playing in the shallows. And so defensive playmakers, they came up with this cover 2 defense. It's where the safeties, they go out into the deep. You got your corners that cover the flats, and then you got your defensive linemen who are right there in the intermediate zone. Right?
Yes.
And so when it comes to this, every single player or every single player in the defense has their role. And one of my favorite safeties of all time, Troy Polamalu, no doubt about it.
But I mean, yeah, he was probably everybody.
Give him his flowers.
Well, no, not against him. I'm just saying, like, yeah.
I know there's a lot of other great safeties, but he's my favorite safety of all time. But I could be biased because he's Samoan. But
not only that, he's the best.
Right. And just great person overall. But anyways, back to cover 2 defense. And so you have your safeties now, instead of roaming around in the intermediate zone, they're now roaming in the deep. And you have your safeties roaming in the deep. You got your D-line over there in the intermediate zone, right there in front.
You got the D-line,
yep.
You got the...
And then you got your corners right there at the flats, making sure that they funnel in the wide receivers, making sure the wide receivers go in and they don't go out too much, so that way they can have a better eye on them. The defensive line can have a better eye on all the receivers. So it's a great play. It's a great play that helps to really, elevate the defense. Elevate the game of defense, or elevate the defensive strategy. That's where cover 2 comes from in terms of when it started coming into play, what it was used for, why it was developed in the first place. And when it comes to cover 2, there are 7 different principles that we want to take from that defensive strategy that we feel are very important when it comes to life. We're not going to let you know on 4 to 7, because we want you to come back and listen to what the other 4 are. But today we're going to be covering the first 3, which is trust and teamwork, balancing coverage, and preparation and adaptability. And then on our next episode, you're going to hear what the other 4 are.
Nice.
Yeah, boy. Yeah, boy.
The first principle that comes from the cover 2 defense. So the first principle that I mentioned is trust and teamwork. When it comes to trust and teamwork, it's important to trust others to play their part and to work together with your team. That's
Everybody has a job,
Mm-hmm.
and in order for the task to be successful, everybody has to succeed in their job.
Right.
Just wanted to say that.
No, absolutely. Because if a safety is trying to go do a corner's job, what's going to happen?
Right. It would mess everything up.
Exactly. It would expose the deep. Or if a corner tried to go and play a D-line's job and stayed in the curl, that leaves the other out wide open, the other side of the flat wide open for running backs to go and make their moves. You know what I mean? So every single part in this, it
Relates to real life.
exactly. And so when it comes to trust and teamwork, in comparison to life, we have to trust the other people that we choose to be in our teams.
Absolutely.
In the same way. Because if we're not trusting our
1000%.
team to play their role, whether it's your parents, whether it's your siblings, whether it's your kids or your cousins or whatever it is, because we're all in this game, we're all playing this game of life together. That's a fact. And it depends on who you have playing on the field. Like, you can have how many people sitting on the bench, but who do you got as your D-line? Who do you got as your safety? Who do you got as your corners that are covering those spaces when those things come your way? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so trusting your safeties to cover your back when you're in the deep. Trusting your corners to cut off the flats or to cut it off where the flats are in order to funnel everything down so you're able to see everything better. Trusting your D-line to make sure that they've got coverage right there in the middle so nothing goes through any holes.
Absolutely.
And all the meanwhile, you are focusing on doing your part. You're not trying to take everybody else's job on yourself. Can you imagine a one-man defense?
Yeah, sometimes it be like that, though.
Right?
Yes.
Because that's essentially what it comes down to. If you can't trust your team, you're a one-man defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what happens when it becomes a one-man defense?
Gotta shift gears.
Right?
You gotta pivot. You gotta do the spin. You know, all kinds of different ways. Gotta hit it with the jab.
Right?
The 1-2.
1-2 skirt skirt. But what are your thoughts on trust and teamwork, Ses?
Apply it to real life things and situations, like relationships, work, any short term goals you might have.
Right.
You know, it's different because these guys are getting paid millions of dollars.
Right.
So there's really no excuse to make mistakes. I mean, where it's very rare. I mean, it happens. I mean, not often.
Right.
So when it does, like, it's on you. So basically just preparation for game day. You know, going over the X's and O's. Making sure everything... I mean, especially in this day and time, it's gotten so deep. Like, the play calling, it's crazy.
Right.
But it's also very interesting, too, though, to be able to learn certain things and having things come from... I mean, football is just fun, period.
Right.
But there's so many plays that offense and defense and just a lot. I mean, if you ever hear, you know, they'll call Peyton Manning, you know, that might be their play. They call it Peyton Manning.
They name it after some different players.
Or a subject or something. You know, to
smart.
throw off the defender or whoever they're playing. But that's very, as opposed to, yeah, so.
No, absolutely. And in order to find success, you need to be able to understand the codes that your team is calling out to you, huh? How important
Well, teamwork makes the dream work. Focusing on our responsibilities is what it comes down to.
Right.
Execute.
And I think that's also not just being able to trust your teammates, but being able to trust yourself
Well,
to carry out your
everyone
responsibilities.
has a role, or however way you want to look at it. I mean, speaking on the cover two, everyone has a job to do.
Right.
There's 11 guys on the football field, so yes, it's very, very vital, crucial,
Right.
critical.
Let's go.
Number two. Let's go into number two. So, talked about trust and teamwork. Number two is balancing coverage. What do we mean by balancing coverage?
Protecting the zones.
Right. Where the defense, they have to balance covering the deep with covering the underneath.
Yeah.
Because if you have way too many people in the deep, not enough people underneath, you're going to have those short plays that are going to be successful for the offensive side. If you have too many people in the shallow, not enough people in the deep.
What do they call it? They call it the adaptability.
Yep.
Balancing is crucial, whether with life, relationships, any goals you might have, things of that nature.
Absolutely. And so it's so important to, when it comes to life, in relation to life, just as it's so important for a defensive line to know how to balance covering the deep and covering the underneath, in the same vein, that's exactly what we need also in our own lives. You can't expect to be invest a lot into work and barely invest into your family, or invest a lot into your friends and barely invest into your work, or invest a lot in your
happens
own hobbies.
Lot.
Yeah.
I was one of them guys once upon a time. It's just balancing, just finding a balance, what your responsibilities are, and executing them, and making sure while everyone else is doing their job, it allows you to also do your job.
Right.
Yeah.
And just like Ses was saying, like making sure that you're well balanced in every sense. Like making sure that you are aware of what's coming up, you're aware of the things that are happening, and then moving accordingly to it and adapting accordingly to it to make sure that everything is covered.
Balancing different life priorities.
Absolutely. And I can say that I was the same, exactly what you were saying, where I was the same way. I invested so much of my time into work, I neglected having a family or even building a family or even my own family. Like I neglected my brothers and their families, and I neglected like building relationships with my cousins or strengthening the relations that are already there with my family members as a single person. And so because I thought, well, I don't have my own personal family, so I'm just going to focus on work. I'm just going to invest all my time, all my blood, sweat, and tears into work, and that's it. That's going to be my life. And then I soon realized, because I invested so much time into work, I let all these other things pass me by that eventually led to me not having that balance, or not finding that balance between work, family, friends, personal hobbies. It really put me in a spot to where I felt very unsatisfied with life. And I felt unfulfilled because I was giving so much of myself to work. I was never investing in myself. I didn't invest in my family's relationships. And I was basically running a one-man defense.
And I feel like, especially for Polynesian people as a whole, you come from the Rock, you want to immediately just straight get to work. That has a lot to play with it, because like the opportunities here, you want to start accomplishing things.
Yeah.
But, like I said before, earlier, it's just trying to find a balance and recognizing that the balance has to be there.
Right.
Has to be present all the time.
And that's something that I'm starting to recognize now, like us doing this podcast and learning how to balance all those things and learning how to rebuild those relationships or to rebuild the other parts of my life.
Or just rebuilding you, as first and foremost, because, we were all guilty of it. But recognizing and trying to learn and do things a little different. You don't have to be dramatic changes, but baby steps is what they call it.
Right.
But And that's what it is. So when you recognize and you start from there, then, hopefully then you can achieve whatever that may be,
Right.
So
Absolutely.
you can have more time at home with your family, have more time to be at work, being able to do vacations with your families. When my kids were babies, we did it all, road trips, you name it. It's just about exploring. And you might learn a thing or two,
Yeah.
So always just coming back to just finding a balance.
Absolutely. And when you do find that balance, you begin to realize how much more fulfilling life can be.
You don't have to be so hard on yourself.
Yeah.
You don't have to be hard around your surroundings. Then you can tell yourself, you got this. You could do this. And like I said, nothing doesn't happen overnight, but there's so many. You want to start doing, what do they call it? Do it yourself.
DIY projects.
And it's fun. Those kind of things are fun. Building things from scratch and being able to, you look at it, then it becomes addicting. And you want to do more and do more and more and more.
And I like how you're saying the requirements of that are having awareness, being aware of yourself, being aware of the different areas of your life, and adaptability, being able to adapt, which leads us into number 3. Number 3.
Let's go.
Preparation and adaptability. And so when it comes to the cover 2 defensive strategy, it is so important for them to prepare before they execute. And when they prepare and they understand the zones, they understand exactly what their role is, they understand their responsibilities, they have their set foundation, and they're able to go and execute. And when they go and they actually meet the offensive line, they're able to read the quarterback, where the quarterback is going to go, where all the different pieces are going to go, and they're able to adapt because they're prepared.
On the fly on the ship.
Absolutely. Ready in season and out of season. But you cannot be ready out of the season if you are not preparing yourself to be able to read the plays as you need to, or being able to read your offense as you need to.
Yeah, because life is just full of surprises. Becoming aware of things and whatever it may be in the individual's life, you have to just be prepared and be whatever comes away, how to react.
Right.
You know what I mean? So just staying prepared as much as you can.
Right.
It's better to have a little than none. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
And I think that's where having a vision comes into play. Having a vision for your life, having goals that you want to achieve and that you want to work towards. Because if you are able to have those long-term goals and keep that in the forefront of your vision, you'll be able, no matter what life throws your way, you're able to overcome it. And
absolutely.
By the way, guys, I had no idea about corner 2 defense until Ses brought it up. Because I just thought, oh yeah, the defensive line, they just kind of watch the quarterback, and wherever the quarterback moves, they move, kind of thing. So I never really understood that there actually is a strategy for when it comes to playing defense.
Yes.
And I didn't know that until Ses brought up, oh, we should do cover 2 defense as our next topic. And so I had to go on YouTube and kind of learn a little bit about the cover 2. Thank God for YouTube University. But just in understanding more about this defensive strategy and the importance of preparation, the importance of being able to adapt, it just really opened my mind to when life shifts, you got to adapt to when life is shifting around you. Yeah.
Adjust for the curveball, or what they call it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just being a little prepared also gives you a little bit of foundation. You got to know how to shift. Things change. It can be hurtful sometimes.
Right.
Probably most, I think. Be able to just learn as you go and not go back that same way.
Right. And that's where I feel that was something that stood out to me when I was watching these YouTube videos learning about corner 2 defense. Is that they talked about how you have to have peripheral vision. You cannot have vision that's only zoned into the quarterback. You have to have peripheral vision to where you see everything that's happening on the field.
That's the only way I know how to see is peripheral.
Exactly. And I've told you this too, to where you growing up as an athlete is something that you develop, which is great, which is something that I'm working.
Athlete might be too much of a big word for me. Just grew up playing sports.
You grew up playing sports. And as someone who grew up playing sports, you've learned how to use your peripheral vision. Like, that's something that you train yourself to do. And I feel like that's so important.
Because of circumstances, right?
Right.
It goes back to that. So having to learn it at such a young age, I was able to learn quickly. Right. So I think when I got to, maybe like early 20s, like I bypassed a lot of my peers. I'm not saying that to be an asshole or anything like that, but that's what I did. And that's just what it was. I mean, shit.
And I think that's what's so key in having peripheral vision, not just when playing sports, but in life in general. Because I know having peripheral vision in the cover 2 defense is key.
Very key.
Because if you are not able to see things from the corner of your eyes, you never know what move someone can make.
Because the offender, they're always looking at your stance and how your feet is, right? They're looking at your eyes. But you know how to do this, so you're not going to give it up. You get what I mean?
Yeah. You know how to mask it because you've done it.
Yeah, because some of the footwork is out of control. They might step and look like that they're right-footed, but he might just pivot and go to the left. You know what I mean? I mean, it happens all the time.
But what do you guys think? What are you guys' thoughts on what defensive strategies have you had to develop just from all the experiences that you've had in your lifetime? Let us know in the comments. Hit us up in our messages. Feel free to email us. Hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is. Let us know. Let us know what you think about cover 2 defense principles that you apply to your life. So the 3 that we talked about today: trust and teamwork, balancing coverage, preparation and adaptability. If you want to learn about 4, 5, 6, and 7, you got to tune in to our next episode, y'all.
Gotta tune in.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And so, Ses, where can they find us at online?
Find us on FromTheGate.com.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. I'm Lisi.
Ses.
Deuces.
Peace.